It's funny how life feels like it's moving along smoothly until everything suddenly shifts. That night, I remember every detail. The way the air felt thick and heavy, almost suffocating. I had just gotten back from a long day at work, my mind still spinning from the chaos of meetings and deadlines. I was tired but eager to see her, to finally start our wedding week. We'd been planning this for over a year, and I thought I knew her so well. Our apartment was quiet when I walked in. It was late, maybe around 10 p.m., and everything looked normal at first glance. The living room, with its scattered magazines and half-eaten snacks, was exactly as I'd left it that morning, but something felt off. I can't explain it. Maybe it was the way the curtains were slightly open, or the faint scent of her perfume mixed with something else I couldn't recognize. My heart started pounding, a strange knot forming in my stomach. I moved toward the bedroom, my footsteps muffled on the carpet. When I peeked inside, I froze. There they were, her and him, my best friend, on the bed. She was tangled in the sheets, her hair messy, and her face flushed. He was just leaning back, looking as smug as could be, like he owned the place. My stomach lurched. Every nerve in my body tightened, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. The moment stretched out, frozen in time, until I finally managed to get out a whisper. "What the hell is going on here?" My voice felt hoarse, like I'd been screaming all night. They both looked up, caught red-handed, their eyes wide with shock and guilt. Her face drained of color, and he looked like he'd seen a ghost. She tried to speak, but her words got caught in her throat. Instead, she looked at me with those big, pleading eyes, like I could somehow forgive her, like this was just some mistake. I saw the trembling in her hands, the way she clenched her jaw. My head spun. How had I missed the signs, the late nights, the secretive texts, the way she'd always avoid my gaze just a little too long? I stepped back, my fists clenched. My palms were slick with sweat, and I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. I wanted to scream, at her, at him, at the universe that had betrayed me so thoroughly. But all I could do was stare, feeling this cold ache settle deep in my chest. I had no idea how long I stayed frozen there, but I knew one thing: nothing would ever be the same again. I turned on my heel and left the room without a word. The apartment felt deafeningly silent after I walked out, like the walls were mocking me. I headed straight to the kitchen, my hands trembling as I grabbed the first thing I could, my phone. I needed to see if I had any messages from her, anything that explained this disaster. Instead of words, I found a string of texts she'd sent earlier that day. Flirty, intimate, almost desperate. I stared at the screen, the words blurring as my vision dimmed. My stomach flipped. All those months of trust shattered in one night. I was numb, so numb I could barely feel the burning rage inside me. And yet, amid the chaos of betrayal, a small spark of something darker flickered to life. I knew I couldn't just walk away, not without making her pay. That's when the plan started forming, something cold, calculated. I didn't want her to see me as the same man she'd taken for granted. She'd broken me, but I'd break her right back. My hands clenched into fists again as I stared at the screen. This wasn't just about cheating. It was about the fact that she'd betrayed everything we'd built. I couldn't trust her anymore, never again. But I could make sure she regretted it. Everything I'd lost, I was going to make her lose 10 times over. As I leaned against the counter, I knew one thing for certain. The next time she looked at me, it wouldn't be with innocence. It'd be with fear. And I'd make sure she remembered the night she tore us apart forever. I spent that night awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through every detail. The image of her in bed with him kept replaying. Her flushed cheeks, her nervous laugh, the way her fingers trembled as she tried to hide her guilt. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I hadn't seen it coming. But the truth was, I'd been blind. Or maybe I just refused to see it because I was too damn in love to admit she might betray me. By morning, the anger had settled into something colder. I knew I couldn't just confront her. No, I needed to plan, carefully, meticulously. I couldn't let her see what I was feeling. That would only give her the upper hand. Instead, I acted like I was intact, like I was just processing it. Inside, I was boiling, but I kept my face smooth, my voice calm when I finally called her. "Can you come over? I think we need to talk," I said, voice even but with an underlying edge. She hesitated, then agreed. I could hear her breathing on the other end, shaky, like she knew what was coming. I didn't bother to hide my disdain. My stomach clenched every time I thought about her in bed with him, her hands on his chest. When she arrived, I didn't bother with pleasantries. "You lied to me," I told her straight up, watching her face twist with guilt. All these months, all those late nights, the secret texts, I saw the messages. Tell me why. My voice was steady, but inside my stomach felt like it was twisting into a knot. She looked down, avoiding my gaze. I don't know, I was confused. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything. I shot back. That's what you're going to say? I clenched my fists. You cheated with my best friend and you're telling me it didn't mean anything. You're unbelievable. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, but I kept my voice as controlled as I could. Her excuse was weak, and I could see she was trying to placate me to make me feel guilty for catching her, but I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. I needed to do something, something that would make her realize what she'd lost. That's when the idea struck me, a slow, cold plan to turn her world upside down. I've been thinking about revenge all night, and I knew exactly how to do it. I wanted her to feel the way I felt when I saw her, abandoned, humiliated, betrayed. But I didn't want to do something impulsive. I needed her to understand that this wasn't just a fleeting mistake. It was a choice she made, and I'd make sure she paid for it. I looked her in the eye. "You're going to regret this," I said, voice low but firm. "You're going to wish you never crossed me." What I didn't tell her then was that I'd already started laying the groundwork. I'd spent the night researching, gathering evidence. I knew every secret she'd been hiding, and now I had the perfect way to make her suffer without exposing myself outright. I was going to turn her own betrayal against her, so she'd see what it felt like to be completely out of control. That afternoon, I started planning. I reached out to a private investigator I knew, someone discreet, someone who could help me find the evidence I needed. I wanted her to think I was naive, that I didn't already know half of what was going on behind her back. I wanted her to feel safe, to let her guard down. That's when I'd strike. I also took the time to set some traps. I bought a small hidden camera, placed it in my apartment, and connected it to my phone. I wanted live footage of her, her reactions, her lies, so I could use that later. Plus, I knew her friends, her social circles. I started making subtle inquiries, planting seeds of doubt among her closest people. All the while my stomach was in knots. I had to stay cold, calculated. I knew I'd crossed a line, but honestly it didn't matter anymore. Trust was gone, completely obliterated. The woman I loved, the man I trusted, both of them had betrayed me in the worst way imaginable. Now I was just waiting for the right moment to make them feel the consequences. By evening I had everything in place. The evidence, the plan, everything was ready. I could feel my heart pounding whenever I thought about how this would play out. She thought she'd gotten away with it. She thought she could cheat on me and walk free. That's where I was going to prove her wrong. It was time to see how much she'd regret this. I knew I wouldn't sleep that night, not until I'd executed the next phase. But in my mind, I kept replaying one phrase: she's going to pay. And I knew, with chilling certainty, that I'd make sure she did. The next day, I woke up with a plan fully formed, like a dark blueprint etched into my mind. I went through my day pretending everything was normal, but inside I was already preparing for the moment I'd finally get to confront her again. I had to be strategic, cold enough to make her feel what I was feeling without revealing my hand too soon. I met her at her place in the late afternoon. She looked nervous, her eyes darting around, trying to read my expression. She knew I was angry, I could see it in her face, but I also sensed she thought she could still talk her way out of it. I didn't give her that chance. "Sit," I said quietly, motioning to the couch. Her lips trembled, but she sat down, fidgeting with her hands. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the coffee table, screen facing her. The small hidden camera I'd installed the night before was already recording everything, and I'd been checking the live feed all day. "I want to show you something," I said, voice even but with an icy undertone. "This is from earlier today." I pressed play on my phone. The footage was clear, her in the apartment laughing with him, touching his arm, leaning in a little too close. The sounds were muffled but unmistakable. Her expression softened, a guilty smile appearing as they whispered to each other. She froze as she recognized herself. That wasn't supposed to happen," she stammered. "I was just what?" I interrupted. Just caught up in the moment or just trying to hide the truth, I paused, letting her squirm. You see, I've been watching every secret, every lie. I've got so much more, your texts, your calls. Maybe I should show you what I've been holding back. Her face went pale. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I dare, I shot back. Because I want you to see what you've done to me, to us. I leaned forward, and I want to make sure you understand you don't get to cheat and walk away without consequences. Her mouth opened, then closed like she was searching for words but couldn't find them. I could see her fighting her own guilt, her denial, but I didn't care. This was just the beginning. I'd made up my mind. I was going to make her regret ever crossing me. The plan was simple. The evidence was solid. I'd send her a message, an ultimatum. Either she ended everything with him, cut ties, promised to be honest from now on, or I would go public with everything. But I wasn't just going to threaten. No, I had one more trick up my sleeve. I pulled out a small envelope from my jacket pocket and slid it across the table to her. This, I said, is what I'll send to everyone, your friends, your family, your employer. I want them to see the real you, the lying, cheating, manipulative version. She looked at it, trembling. Please don't do that, she begged. I'll fix this, I swear. Just give me a chance. I shook my head slowly. No chance, not after this, not after I've seen how you really feel about us. I stood up, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and nausea. But I'm not done yet, you owe me an explanation. Her voice cracked. I didn't mean to hurt you, it just happened. I was stupid, I guess. She looked down, tears pooling in her eyes. Please, I love you, don't ruin everything over this. I looked at her, cold and unshaken now. Love. You want to talk about love? Maybe, but I think what you really wanted was to feel alive, by sneaking around, by betraying the one person who trusted you the most. Well, congratulations, you got exactly what you wanted. I left her sitting there, the evidence flashing on my phone screen. That moment was a turning point. No more secrets, no more lies. I had everything I needed to end this. I knew what I was going to do next, and honestly, I was already feeling a strange relief, like I'd finally taken control again. But as I stepped out of her apartment, a strange thought flickered in my mind. Did I really want revenge? Or was I just trying to convince myself that I wasn't broken? I pushed the thought away. The pain was too fresh, and I already knew what my next move had to be. That night I sat alone, staring at my phone, contemplating the final step. I knew how I'd finish this, how I'd make her feel what I'd endured, and I'd do it with a quiet, ruthless certainty. I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not without a price. The plan was set, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking a razor's edge, dangerous but necessary. I spent the next few days carefully orchestrating everything, making sure every detail lined up perfectly. I wanted her to feel the shock, the shame, the helplessness, just like I had that terrible night. I monitored her social media accounts, tracked her movements, and kept a close eye on her phone. I knew she was panicked, trying to cover her tracks, but I had already anticipated her every move. Meanwhile, I kept my own composure, pretending I was unaffected, though inside I was a mess of raw, relentless anger. One evening I sent her a message, just a simple text. We need to talk. Be at the park near your place in an hour. I knew she'd come. She always did when she was scared or desperate. When she showed up, I was already waiting under the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, my heart pounding in my chest. Her face lit up with a mixture of hope and dread as she approached. "What's this about?" she asked, voice trembling. I looked at her carefully, then pulled out my phone and pressed play on a video I'd recorded earlier that day. It was her sneaking out of her apartment, heading toward the hotel where he was staying. The footage was crystal clear. I could hear her whispering on the phone, her voice husky with excitement. Her eyes widened as she watched. "You're recording me," she gasped. "What are you doing?" "I'm making sure you understand," I said quietly. "This isn't just about one night, it's about what you've been hiding, about how you've been lying and cheating, even when I thought I knew you." I paused, letting the silence fill the space between us. "What do you think I'll do with this?" She looked like she might cry. "Please don't do anything crazy," she begged. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was stupid, but I love you." I scoffed. "Love, that's rich coming from you. You betrayed me, you lied, you cheated, and now you're begging for mercy." I stepped closer, feeling the adrenaline surge. "You think I'm just going to forgive everything?" "No, I want you to feel what I felt. what it's like to be completely abandoned, completely betrayed. Her eyes glistened with tears, but I wasn't done. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a thumb drive I'd prepared earlier. "Here," I said, shoving it into her hand. "This is everything, the evidence, the recordings, the messages. I want you to take it, and I want you to think about what you've done. Because when I release this, your life will change forever." She looked at the drive, trembling, then looked at me with a mixture of fear and shame. "Please don't do that," she whispered. "Oh, I will," I said coldly. "Because I need you to understand that trust is gone. You broke me, and I won't be the fool anymore." I turned to leave, my heart pounding with a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. As I walked away, I could hear her crying behind me. But I didn't look back. I knew I was about to send the message that would undo her, publicly and permanently. That night, I uploaded everything to a secure account, ready to send it out at my command. The moment I pressed send, her world would shatter completely. And I realized with a sick sense of calm that I'd finally taken control. Why did I do it? Because trust is a fragile thing, and once broken, it doesn't just heal. Sometimes the only way to fix what's been destroyed is to burn it all down first, then rebuild from the ashes. The moment I hit send on that email, sending all the evidence, all her secrets out into the world, felt like finally exhaling after holding my breath for too long. I watched her face as she opened her laptop, saw the message, saw the files, and her eyes went wide with horror. That was the moment I knew I'd done what I set out to do. She stared at the screen, then looked up at me with disbelief. "You really did it," she whispered, voice trembling. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I'm very serious," I said, my voice cold. "You wanted to keep this hidden forever, but now everyone will know the real you." I paused, watching her struggle for words. "You betrayed me, and I just made sure you pay for it." She shut her laptop, tears streaming down her face. "Please," she begged, voice cracking. "This isn't fair. I made a mistake. Just give me another chance." I shook my head slowly. "No, that ship sailed the night I found you in bed with him. You think I'm going to trust you again after this, after everything?" My jaw clenched. Trust is dead, and I'm done pretending it's still alive. She tried to reach out, her hands trembling, but I stepped back. "You should go," I said, voice firm, "and don't come back, not ever." I watched her stumble out of my apartment, her shoulders hunched, her face blotched with tears. As soon as she was gone, I felt the weight of it all settle into my chest. The emptiness, the hollow victory, because even though I'd destroyed her reputation, I still felt like I'd lost a part of myself, something I'd never get back. The trust I'd given, the love I thought was real, shattered into a million pieces. But in the aftermath, I knew one thing. This was the end of it. I wouldn't let her manipulate me again. I wouldn't let her lie to my face, then walk away without consequences. I was done being the fool. That night I packed a bag, took the keys to my apartment, and left. I handed over the house keys, the ones I'd kept for years, and filed the paperwork officially ending everything. I didn't want anything left of her, no apartment, no shared memories, just a clean break. As I watched the papers slide across the table and signed my name, I finally felt a strange sense of relief, an awkward, bitter kind, but relief nonetheless. Walking out the door, I took one last deep breath of the cold night air. It hit my lungs like a slap, sharp and real. I looked back at the apartment, empty now, like my heart had become. I knew I'd never trust anyone again, not fully. But I also knew I'd survive, and maybe someday I'd learn to trust again. The lesson was clear. Trust is a fragile thing, and when it's broken, you have two choices: wait for it to heal or burn it down and start over. I chose the latter. And honestly, I've never felt more alive than when I finally took back control. Sometimes revenge isn't about tearing someone down, it's about reclaiming what's yours. And in my case, it was about ending the nightmare she'd created and finally walking away. In the days that followed, I felt like I was slowly exhaling for the first time in months. The weight of betrayal had finally been lifted, replaced by this strange mixture of relief and numbness. I knew I'd made my choice, burned those bridges, and now I had to start rebuilding from the ashes. The hardest part was realizing how much I'd trusted her, how blindly I'd believed in the version of us that I thought was real. It's funny how love blinds you to the warning signs, how you convince yourself that maybe, just maybe, things will get better. But once trust shatters, Once you see someone you loved so deeply turn into a stranger, it leaves a scar that never quite fades. Still, I've come to accept that not everyone is worth the pain. Some betrayals run too deep, and you have to decide whether to forgive or to walk away. I chose the latter. I didn't want to carry her betrayal around like a weight on my back. I wanted to reclaim my life piece by piece. Looking back, I realized that revenge wasn't just about hurting her. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my peace of mind. I needed her. To see that her lies had consequences, big ones. I needed to remind myself that I'm capable of standing tall even after everything was torn apart. I've moved on, though it's not easy. I still get flashes of anger, memories that sting. But now I focus on rebuilding what I lost, trust in myself, in my judgment, in the idea that I deserve better. I still have scars, but I also have strength I didn't know I had. If there's one thing I'd say to anyone in a similar situation, it's this. Don't just react out of pain or rage. Be strategic, be ruthless if you have to, but make sure it's about reclaiming your life, not just revenge for its own sake. Trust is fragile. Once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. Sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away, rebuild from scratch, and learn to trust yourself again. Betrayal hurts. It leaves you questioning everything, your judgment, your worth, your happiness. But the truth is, you are stronger than your pain. And if you decide to let go, to cut loose what no longer serves you, you'll find that life still has pieces worth holding on to. I learned that the hard way. But I also learned that sometimes the only way to truly heal is to burn the past to the ground and start anew. And that's what I did. I handed over the keys, closed that chapter, and walked forward, alone, yes, but finally free. And that honestly is the kind of peace I never thought I'd find again.